This is the Wild Sage Society podcast, where we explore the ideas and practices that help us live healthy, connected, and purpose-filled lives. Each week, our host, Marcy Walker, connects with healers, spiritual leaders, doctors, and small business owners on topics such as human resilience, conscious leadership, and modern shamanism. Here is your host, Marcy Walker.
Hi, this is Marcy Walker, and this is episode 23 of the Wild Sage Society podcast. Today, I have Jilian of Blue Heron Medicine. She is a sacred medicine ceremonialist, spiritual development mentor, and a generational healing practitioner. Thank you, Jilian, for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I know that we have lots of work together, and I wanted to share with the audience all of the medicine that you share with the world. And I was hoping that you would give us a little background into how you got here into being a sacred medicine ceremonialist and spiritual development mentor and all the things that you are.
Absolutely. It's been quite a journey getting to this point. It's one that's vulnerable, a little bit personal and sacred to my heart, but I feel that sharing that information on how I got here is important for two reasons. Primarily for just to understand that healing is a spiral process of continual growth. And number two, to really help others understand there's so much more than their lived experiences and to inspire hope. For me, becoming a medicine practitioner was a long journey. I grew up in a religious cult and was trafficked as a child for 16 years. So the trauma I experienced in my early life was the clay that molded me to where I am today. And for me, it began with going inside myself and really healing from all the atrocities I had experienced through those multiple years of being trafficked. It also meant learning about myself through external lenses and the impacts of trauma on my body, heart, and mind, as well as in society. And throughout my journey, I have gained a lot of awareness on what it's like to be a survivor of atrocities, particularly to sexual, physical, and mental trauma. And it has also helped me to understand on the other side, being a practitioner, serving those who have experienced those atrocities as well. So for me, it started with healing, therapy, you name it. I was really into anything I could do to help myself heal. And from there, my interests branched out into how I could serve other people who had also experienced things similar to this. My background became in social work. I spent over a decade working with human rape trafficking survivors and really seeing some of the impacts that trauma has on those populations. I then kind of throughout that experience was really seeing this continually presented wound within those that I was serving that wasn't really being met. And for me, that was kind of the spiritual wounding, that soul wound, that really deep wound that is often ineffable and hard to articulate, resurfacing within each individual that I was interacting with. And I knew for me that was an important aspect of healing in my own journey. I turned to different indigenous ways of healing, medicine ceremony, and grew to really love it so much and the impact that it had on my life that I knew I needed to show up in a different way for those that are seeking help, because I know the impact that those kind of atrocities can have on the spirit and on the soul. And I feel like a lot of times we're really focused on the mental and the emotional, and that's beautiful and totally necessary. But I feel like a lot of times we're missing a piece.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
I thank you for sharing that. I've known you and have grown very close to you over the past several years, and there are new parts of your story, and I'm sure I appreciate your vulnerability.
Of course.
You definitely helped me on my own recovery for sexual trauma, and the moments that we've shared in ceremony have been invaluable. And so that's part of the reason that I wanted you on today, is so people out there that are struggling can reach out and feel supported.
Absolutely. That's my heart to be able to serve in that way.
Well, we talk a lot, and we talk a lot about trauma, and we have a mutual passion of trying to bring energy healing clinics into Reno, and outside of that. And what would an energy healing clinic look like for you?
For me, are an opportunity for others to have a container where they can feel like they can fully be seen, heard, and able to fully be themselves in a safe way. For me, there's a level of intimacy that's involved with energy healing clinics. And by energy healing, that could mean Reiki, that could mean different healing modalities that come into play that allow our nervous systems to be soothed enough to feel safer to share and safer to be authentic and real with exactly where we're at. So for me, it's energy healing clinics really serve the heart. They help us come and back to and to return to our heart and what's real and what's alive for us, as well as to take the time to have a sacred pause to really be present with what's alive inside.
That's so beautiful. I love the idea of being able to do these clinics and be of service to more people that are struggling with trauma and how that's manifested into disease, and being able to be of service to those who financially can't afford it. And it's been a challenge to try to articulate the benefits of what these clinics could provide, because I think that it's so profound. Do you have any insight?
Absolutely. Accessibility, the things that often is a hindrance to people receiving support and to receiving help. And I know for our local community here in Reno, oftentimes mental health services and things that are really needed for people who are navigating hardship, there's often quite a financial investment if they don't have insurance that is required. And there is also typically a lack of resources. Many clinics here, many mental health services here have upwards to a year wait list. And so there's really a high demand. We've all been through, especially if we just, zoomed in on the past couple of years as, humans living in the world, we've been through this massive collective trauma, and all of us are impacted by it and processing it in our own unique ways. And those resources that previously may have had a little bit more availability are being quite taxed. And so being able to remind people that there are other options, that they're not alone, that they're not forgotten, and that although energy healing is a little bit different than other traditional services, that is something that we do hope to integrate in terms of being able to provide, people with at least referrals for mental health resources, if not mini sessions, because it's so important.
It is. With I just am always blown away that you came out of social work, and you came out of kind of what would be considered the matrix, and then have shifted in such a dynamic. And, that I always get questions around woo woo. What do you believe is woo woo, and how do we kind of debunk the term?
Yeah, I love that question. Woo woo for me is something that I have kind of my own unique definition for. So I can kind of speak from this is how I identify it. I use the term kind of magic, woo-woo, spirituality as terms for recognizing an embodied living art form. What I mean by that is the way we talk to ourselves, the way we interact with others, the way we interact with the earth, how we nourish ourselves, feed ourselves, the way we walk upon the earth and interact with each other. Life itself is sacred. And so incorporating the spirit, that thing that animates us, that gives us a mind, things to contribute, our ability to create. These are all things that go beyond our understanding often. And so for me, the woo-woo, the magic, the spiritual is honoring the mystery of how we interact with all of life, whether that's honoring the rhythms and cycles of nature inside of us, inside our bodies, whether that's, checking in with a loved one that we just got this idea we need to check in with, be connected, that we may be not able to describe. I think there's a lot of things that we don't understand in terms of how interconnected we are, and in a massive way, to the world and to each other. And so for me, connecting in with that part, that mystery, that allows us to continue to create and to be self-referencing and to explore more about ourselves and each other in a way that goes beyond self-perceived notions or societal conditioning.
That's beautiful. Just very articulate. With being a ceremonialist, I know that I've had my fair share of ceremonies with you, including, you can look on my Instagram page where I have some marks on my arm from doing combo. Combo for me had such a profound effect with what I believe to be Epstein-Barr. Can you go into combo specifically and what that helps?
Yeah, absolutely. So combo is a medicine that I received training in from the Yananawa tribes of Peru. It is an indigenous sacred medicine. It is known as the monkey tree frog medicine, meaning combo is a secretion the tribes have used for centuries that comes off of its back. The frogs aren't harmed, don't worry. But what the tribes have found is that this compound has many active biopeptides that are extremely effective for antiparalytic, antiviral, anti-inflammatory, chronic pain. It has this whole natural bioavailability that we already have in our bodies that it provides. And so it's so helpful for those who have internalized trauma. It helps to detox our bodies in a number of different ways. It's not a psychedelic medicine, by the way, everyone. It's definitely a detoxifying medicine. And I myself love combo so much. It saved my body. I struggled through internalizing a lot of my trauma with fibromyalgia, really chronic, to the point where that pain was so intensely dictating my life, I couldn't really function. And through experiencing that medicine, I was able to function again, and I no longer have any fibromyalgia or any pain. I can't guarantee that for everyone, but I can I've seen so many beautiful ways that it has shown up for people in terms of detoxifying, really clearing out all the clutter that's inside of our cells and our bodies. And a lot of times that trauma is inside our cells, and it helps to release that.
How would someone know if Combo is calling to them?
So there's kind of twofold way to know if it's calling to you. Number one, if you find yourself really curious about the medicine, or you start to see frogs everywhere, there's like frogs that are kind of in your space, you're dreaming about frogs, or like, what is this frog about? It's kind of a fun way that it's calling to you. On top of that, though, it's really about checking in with your body and seeing what it needs. If you me and a lot of people that I serve, they're at a crossroads. They're like, nothing is working for me. I'm really struggling, whether physically, emotionally, or things just are not working out for me in multiple areas of my life. I feel the constant need to assert my boundaries. I feel like I might be trampled upon. Those are kind of key indicators for me that Combo might be calling to someone. The tribes like to describe Combo as a boundaries medicine and as a medicine that rids what's called panema. So panema to the tribes is chronic bad luck and illness. So I feel like learning about it, doing your research, if you're really wanting to learn more about it, go for it. It's not a fit for everyone. There are some counterindications, which is why you need a practitioner who really knows their stuff, and who knows how to show up in a good way for you. But yeah, there's just things that will pop up into your space that are quite comical sometimes with a frog. It's hard to describe. I've had people tell me that everyone around them would just incessantly keep burping, and they knew, and it sounded like a frog, right? And so they're like, okay, I feel like the frog is coming in for me. And so there are serious ways it comes in, and there's also some silly ways.
It's a beautiful awareness, that's for sure. Combo, for those, I've had 5 ceremonies with you, and each ceremony is so completely different. You know, the last time we went and did a full moon inoculation. I can't say that.
Inoculation. Word. Yeah.
Thank you. Will you explain why we did that?
Yeah.
What's the benefit of doing
a combo inoculation is traditionally how Combo is served by the tribes. An inoculation means that you are receiving 3 separate Combo ceremonies within one lunar cycle. The reasoning for this is because it typically takes 3 ceremonies for the medicine to give you a complete nervous system reset, because it works with your nervous system, which also is a reason why it's really helpful for trauma, because we're often in our fight or flight and continually releasing all of those chemicals and compounds that are associated with that into our body. So the benefit of having 3 in a row is to help reset the nervous system, as well as if there's any sort of chronic pain issues or a real need for detoxification. 3 ceremonies can be a game changer.
So it would be helpful for alcoholism or addiction? Is there a counterindication with?
There are studies that have shown that Combo can be helpful with addiction. However, there is a counterindication with alcohol. So if someone is unable to abstain from alcohol because it can be lethal to detoxify from, it should be done in a clinical way, just because the detoxification from alcohol can be deadly. There is a counterindication there, depending upon the severity. Usually people need to be able to abstain for a minimum of a week from alcohol, both before and afterwards, for combo to really be fully effective. I have had success with people who have received it for alcoholism, who were able to identify, through the ceremonies, like which traumas and coping mechanisms were coming up that were being triggered that made them want to drink. One of the medicines that I do not serve, but that has been shown to be extremely successful with regards to addiction, is a medicine called Ibogaine.
I haven't even heard of that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an African medicine. It is a psychedelic, and it's quite a long ceremony. It's not served in the United States. Mm-hmm.
Other medicines that you do serve?
Yeah, so the medicines that I do serve are combo, which we have kind of gone over. Mm-hmm. The other ones that are typically involved with a combo ceremony are hape, which is a sacred tobacco, very different, completely different plant than the tobacco that is smoked here in the United States or in cigarettes, which is a shamanic snuff that is blown up the nose. The reason for that is it's meant to help clear the sinuses. It's really good for people who struggle with like a chronic stuffy nose, allergies, congestion. If they have a hard time emoting, it can also help kind of open up the tear ducts and those things to help with emotional release. The second one that is involved sometimes with combo is an eye drop called Sananga, which comes from an African root. And it is a medicine that is often used by the tribes to enhance their vision when they're hunting so that they can see more clearly. It also helps to clear out the tear ducts, as well as kind of help you to see better. Also known to help clear the third eye if you're talking on the more woo side of if you just kind of feel like blocked from your abilities.
Okay. I have used all of those, and they are definitely their own experience. And yeah. I think for Sanaga that it's learning to tune in your breath and helping your breath move the medicine through your body, and learning that surrender, I think, was the most powerful takeaway for me for the last ceremony where we had Sanaga.
Yeah, Sananga, for those unfamiliar, when it's placed into your eyes, it has a little bit of a burning sensation that can be intense. It lasts about 2 minutes. And when it's put on, you use your breath to kind of move that energy. So it can be really helpful for releasing anger or frustration or just tension in the body, because it really requires you to be present.
For sure. It reminds me of going to the eye doctor and getting your eyes dilated, because it has that burn to it.
Right.
Yeah. So you are someone that I would consider a medicine woman, not only just because of the ceremonies that you do serve and provide, but sound healings and your vocal activations, and you were, I don't know, you're just so magical and lovely to be and spend time with. It's just, I want everybody to hear everything about sound and the vocal activations, and you've had me do some vocal activations and it's really uncomfortable, but there's been a huge benefit in that. Can you say more about magic that comes
Absolutely through? Yeah, sound healing is such a beautiful medicine for those who haven't experienced it. I highly recommend it for everyone, and that's the one medicine I would say is for everyone, is sound. Primarily because the sound healing is using frequencies that are already available in your body and in nature, where you are literally attuned as an instrument to emit certain tones. When we go to sound healing, it helps to retune our bodies to those frequencies. We often feel disharmony in ourselves if we're not kind of tuned in to those sensations that are around us within the earth. So sound healing is super effective for soothing the nervous system, allowing you to feel like you can relax, and it helps to tune your cells. There's actually some really beautiful studies about how biofield tuning, which is a form of sound healing, that helps your body to return back to its natural resonance, its natural tone, to create more harmony in your body. It's a really beautiful way to just receive. There's actually nothing, no effort involved from you as the recipient at all, other than just like laying down and relaxing, which is a really beautiful offering that it provides. And then in terms of voice, the voice is so important, especially for survivors of trauma, but for everyone really, because we often, I think a lot of us can relate to needing to edit ourselves, needing to silence ourselves at times, needing to be careful about how we articulate things. And vocal activations are a way for people to tune into their voice and to really open it up. Even as I'm talking about it, I'm noticing that I'm having a response in my throat. Yeah, so connecting in with your voice is really powerful because it helps energy to move in our body. I know for me, like an example of that is like if you're really feeling angry or frustrated, like one way to help that energy move out of your body is really to just like scream into a pillow, scream in your car. That frequency really helps to release stress in your body. Singing is also a way that we can express joy, be silly, play. There's so much that we hold within our voice that we may not even be aware of. There's actually a nerve called the vagus nerve, which runs from our head all the way down to our tailbone. And when we experience trauma, that vagus nerve becomes out of tune. So its impact, it's like, if you want to imagine it as a guitar string inside of our body, when that becomes out of tune, it impacts our voice and our ability to communicate. I know that a lot of people, like, if you felt sad or like something was really deeply moving you and you felt that lump in the throat, that's like a vagal nerve response.
I was writing a quick note, the lump in the throat. You, when we have been in ceremony, you have actually sang to parts of my body. And were you just reattuning those parts?
Yes.
Okay. And you do that with different methods, singing bowls. What is your favorite sound healing instrument? Is it your voice?
It actually is the voice. I love guiding people to toning to different areas of their body that are maybe tense, like just making a sound while you put your hand on that area helps to like reduce tension. Helps us to kind of get out of the way too, because we're worried about how we're going to sound or, you know, what others might think of us when we make a silly sound. The human voice is so powerful. And I also love sound healing instruments as well for healing. My favorite is the harp.
You have a badass harp.
I do.
I miss your harp.
I do too. It'll come out in a way for sure. But okay. Yeah, the harp is so healing. There's videos of people that will literally be hired by zoos for animals hostile food that are hostile to the zookeepers. They'll actually hire a harpist to go play outside because it's that soothing to the nervous system of the animals that they'll be tranquil and calm.
I want that job.
Right?
That would be amazing.
I'm just going to go play harp for a bear. No big deal.
Yes. I didn't even know that, you know, speaking of jobs, I was on Indeed and I was looking around there and I noticed that there were 29 job postings for Reiki practitioners. And I think that that's so huge because to me, it just says that energy medicine is getting out and more well known for it to be posted on a job posting site.
I think people are becoming more aware of these modalities through their exposure, kind of in more quote unquote like mainstream media. And I think a lot of people are really just feeling, from the past couple of years, that sense of isolation, wanting to have hands-on healing, wanting to have just that heart-to-heart connection with someone. I think people are just really curious about maintaining their health in whatever way that is, to promote wellness, and to really take more actions now in terms of, illness prevention. And I think a lot of people are looking to energy healing and other modalities right now to really realign themselves with wellness. I think that's been on a lot of people's minds these past couple of years, is how can I remain well?
And I think those numbers are going to be growing. When I wrote the executive summary for the Embodied Wellness Collective to be able to do the energy healing clinics, I had to write a section about the future of what wellness and well-being was, and energy medicine was a big component of that. You are one of my go-tos when I have a complicated case. And recently I reached out for your advice about someone that was overserved with psychedelics. Can we dive into that a little bit?
Absolutely. And I'll preface it with, this conversation is not so much geared toward the promotion of doing psychedelics, but in terms of psychedelic harm prevention. So being a medicine ceremonialist, I hear of circumstances, unfortunately, fairly often, with people wanting to receive guidance regarding, unfortunately, either being overserved, a psychedelic medicine, being served it in a way that maybe what's safe for them to receive, that caused kind of a cascade of different effects. My psychedelic harm reduction training comes from Peru, as well as from the Zendo project, which is very involved with festivals, including Burning Man, which is an area that needs a lot of psychedelic harm reduction. There are many facets that people can do to approach medicine ceremony, if that's something that is really calling them, if they're looking for a psychedelic experience, to create safety for themselves. And for me, these are kind of divided into 4 different categories. As a practitioner myself, I can't uphold other people to practicing in a certain way, but I then put information in the hands of other people to kind of help empower them along the way towards seeking ceremony. So for me, those categories all are with the letter P. Number 1 is pre-screening. This can be doing a self-assessment of, are you ready? Have you done your research on what the psychedelic medicine does, how it interacts with the body, knowing where it is sourced from. If you are receiving from a practitioner, they should definitely be able to clearly articulate exactly where it is sourced from. If they don't know where it's sourced from, I would advise you not to go forward with that, because that can lead to unsafe serving, as well as to really self-assess if you're on medications, if you have like an antidepressant that you're on, a psychotic, a benzodiazepine. Most of those are going to be counterindicated with other medicines. They are not things that you can just go off of willy-nilly. Even if the medicine practitioner says don't take your meds for 2 weeks, that is something that should absolutely be advised by your physician, because those things cannot be just taken out of your system. There's titration processes that need to occur to ensure your safety. So it really kind of starts with that pre-screening. Is the practitioner, if you are seeking a practitioner, if you're self-serving, do you know where it's sourced from? Are you ready? I don't recommend self-serving alone, or with people who don't have experience with holding that kind of container. just for safety. Then in terms of like the preparation process for preparing for ceremony, if you're like, okay, physically, health-wise, I've gotten a screening from my practitioner. They've asked me health questions to make sure I'm physically safe to receive the medicine. They've also gone over my mental health and how I'm feeling. Those are things that your practitioner should be going over with you prior to a ceremony. Preparing for ceremony, are you able to adjust your diet to the dietary needs that are needed for that ceremony safely? A lot of ceremonies require no meat, no sugar, no salts, no processed food, no dairy. And I know for like hypoglycemic people, that's really not something that can really be attained safely. So there's preparation processes that should be explained by your practitioner as well, or as you prepare for a ceremony. The other things that I always recommend for people who receive ceremony from me is, if part of the preparation is we do what's called a weather forecast. So if there are traumas or other things that might come up in ceremony, we go over what is your worst case scenario that could potentially occur, and we pre-plan for that to have already occurred. What that does is it allows us to have an action plan in place to understand the support system as well as that person's individual needs during ceremony, as well as the integration part afterwards. So when you show up to a ceremony, a lot of that should be pre-paved for you with a practitioner. And then integration, like Marcy had mentioned here, that after part is everything. I have a saying that 10% of the healing occurs during ceremony. The rest of it is the walk to the altar and the walk away from it. So that integration process is imperative for practitioners. If you are a practitioner who does not know what medications, a lot of times the indigenous tribes are not going to train you on medications in Western medicine because it's not alive in their world for what can counteract with a sacred medicine. So things like antidepressants, antipsychotics, benzodiazepines, those are things that they don't know much about because it's not alive in their culture. However, it is here. So please, try to educate yourself. Third Wave website is fantastic for reference for practitioners. They have a detailed list of what counterindicates different medicines. For people who have been overserved as psychedelic medicine, there are typically going to be some signs for the practitioner as well as the participant. Number one is there's going to be a state of potentially psychosis. What that means is, like, sometimes you'll see people coming out with paranoid thinking patterns, disorganized thoughts. They can't calm down. They can't relax. They're just really hyper and activated. Some people shave their heads and kind of behave in manners that just is out of their character. They'll often have a hard time with emotional regulation and an inability to stop crying. And that's partially due to what's called serotonin dumping syndrome, which is unfortunately an after effect if you're overdosed on a psychedelic. It's not good stuff.
It is not. Why it came up and why I reached out to you is that I had a client that went to a 4-day retreat and was served 7 different medicines. And a lot of, and those were Bufo, psilocybin, San Pedro, and ayahuasca. Mm-hmm. And so you recommended that those, the counterindications for those are 30 days apart. And there was, her behavior was just really different. She was in a state of fight or flight when she arrived here, and she knew that she didn't do the integration part. And so we just have been working on trying to put together life again.
Yeah. And it brings up a fantastic point. And I'm so glad you brought it up too, is it's like, there is no reason, in my opinion, for you to be served a plethora of medicines simultaneously and together Number one, because it's creating harm for people who are seeking healing, often survivors of trauma, who are already traumatized. And giving them multiple medicines within such a short amount of time is creating harm and perpetuating potentially their trauma. There is a 30-day counterindication window for medicines. And I know a lot of times within this psychedelic renaissance that we're kind of in as a society, there can be a big curiosity and a idea that more medicine means more healing. And I'm here to kind of debunk that that's not true. More medicine isn't necessarily more healing, more integration, time for self-care, more inner reflection, and the integration process can be really healing. But back-to-back medicines continually or within a short amount of time doesn't allow your body to calm down or your nervous system to reset. It's going to create more tension in the body, and it doesn't allow any time for integration. A lot of times during psychedelic experiences, it's common to describe a psychedelic experience as 20 years of therapy in an hour or in 8 hours or however long that medicine's effect is, because it can bring so much to the forefront from your subconscious to process. And that is so much. It can be really, really, really beautiful and really healing, but it requires a deeper presence and slowing down to really integrate what that medicine is bringing for you versus going to the next and going to the next and going to the next, because it will likely overwhelm you psychologically, emotionally, and physiologically.
I just couldn't have imagined doing combo and ayahuasca back to back. I mean, I haven't done ayahuasca, but just the purgatory effects of both medicines, that it would be seemingly a lot for one person to handle.
Yeah, and to kind of clarify that further, since combo is not a psychedelic medicine, it is often paired with a psychedelic medicine as something to receive before, and that is safe to do. It's not safe to have combo right after a psychedelic, though. So if it's right before, you've got a green light. It's not a psychedelic, so it's not activating that psychological impact. But back-to-back psychedelic medicines such as psilocybin, bufo, San Pedro, ayahuasca, tepescoite, any of these kind of medicines, that's a lot for your mind, a lot for your nervous system.
Yes. And I think that the pre-screening is so good, just to know where your client is, what emotional state they're at, and determining what kind of avoidant behavior or behavior patterns they already have is such a huge component of all of it. So I think I really appreciate that you've taken the time to kind of break that all down and to continue to ask all of my crazy text messages that I send to you and in support of our community and people healing.
Absolutely. And yeah, for those that are seekers, I don't share this information to create fear or anything. It's truly with the intent for helping you to keep safe. And if you are seeking and you were invited to a ceremony or something of that effect, and the practitioner is just unwilling to have a conversation with you about your medications, where the medicine is sourced, or the process, or really kind of what your needs are, maybe it's not a fit.
And I guess tuning into your intuition too, and making sure that practitioner feels right, because there are a lot of vulnerabilities and things that do come up. And I mean, Jilian has been amazing in has helped me support a lot of healing of my own, and like I mentioned earlier in this episode, sexual trauma. And she has such a beautiful presence in being able to hold, I don't want to say space, but just the nurturing nature that you have. Like, I really felt seen, heard, and understood to such a deep. And I just want to honor you for what you do and how you show up in the world.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And it's, when I was first seeking out medicine myself, and I bring up a great point, it was imperative and important for me to feel safe with the practitioner and to have them know where I was coming from, so that I could feel like I could go there with my healing, that I could be vulnerable, and then I could be supported and feel safe in that vulnerability. And medicine space is really vulnerable, and having that connection with the practitioner is important, and trusting your intuition, trusting your gut of like, does this feel right for me? Because oftentimes people, I will notice, will ask me, they'll say like, I'm feeling really called to it, but I'm scared, but I know I need to do it. I'm like, okay. So there's that intuition. And then there's another one that's like, no, I'm in terror. Something is telling me no. So kind of understanding and checking in with your own body of like, if it's bringing up the sense of like terror and you're just absolutely like totally scared of it, it may not be time, and that's totally okay. And psychedelics in particular are not for everybody. They really aren't. They can be profoundly healing, and they can also be dysregulating to certain mental conditions. It's important to really approach it safely, be informed, and ask your practitioners lots and lots and lots of questions. The screening is just as much for you, screening if they're a fit for you, as it is for them.
I really think that this is an important topic, just with dysregulation of, psilocybin happening. Colorado, California, Nevada will be next. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, it's very important that information be available for people to be able to receive safely. I know within Colorado, there have been a lot of discussions regarding personal use has been decriminalized. Does that mean that you can share it with other people? Or is this something that needs to be done by a mental health professional? And I think this is something that's going to be a hot topic in the years to come, on where that line is for a lot of different communities and what works. There are a number of organizations out that are on the forefront doing psychedelic harm reduction and education. And there are also facilities in those states that have trained mental health practitioners who are trauma informed, who have training within the medicine. I think it's important to have some of those in place to maintain safety, particularly for people who have experienced significant trauma, because things are going to come up. Set and setting for where you receive medicine is everything, which is why at Burning Man there's an entire area dedicated to helping people calm down, because festivals can be very overstimulating and a lot for the mind to take in when on a substance. So having a controlled, calm, maintained environment is also very key.
I love that. There is definitely a common thread throughout this entire podcast episode about trauma resolution, being trauma informed, creating safe space. And, that's one of the things that we want to do in these energy healing clinics that is fastly approaching. Do you want to talk a little bit about the energy healing clinic that you're creating right now?
Absolutely. So in the Reno, Nevada area, the energy healing clinic is called Return to Your Heart, a Circle of Healing. And it has been a collective and shared prayer that those who are in need of healing can come and receive healing. We have a number of different practitioners from different backgrounds, including energy healing practitioners, as well as talk therapy, as well as massage. There's a whole bunch of different modalities that are coming together. And Our energy healing event is called Return to the Heart, a Circle of Healing. It is going to be located at the University of Nevada, Reno's Center for Molecular Medicine on May 6th and 7th. This is a free and donation-based energy healing clinic for those who are in need of support to come receive healing. We have a number of practitioners from different backgrounds. There'll be sound healing, energy healing, massage therapy, there'll be talk therapy. There's a number of different services that will be provided. And the prayer really has continued to be, even throughout this entire conversation of how can we reduce harm, how can we reduce suffering, and how can we really return to that authentic heart center within us to be able to feel like we can fully be ourselves and receive what it is that we need through the healing power of community.
I love it so much. Jillian, You were just so wonderful and such a big piece of my heart and day, actually, because we talk several times a day, and I just love and appreciate you. And I love you being my mentor and my ceremonialist and all of the things that you are. Before we go, would you share with the listeners how you stay connected and live a purpose-filled life?
Thank you, Marcy. I love you too. How I stay centered and live a purposeful life is by treating life as if it is its own ceremony, by slowing down, honoring myself daily, by honoring other people daily, and really trying to live my life as fully as I can with an open heart.
It's beautiful. I admire those things about you. If someone was looking to work with you, where would they find you?
If you are interested in learning more about medicines or in working with me as a practitioner, my information is located at blueheronmedicine.com. Blue Heron, just like the bird, medicine.com. All of my information is there, as well as additional information about the medicines and services that I offer.
She has some very powerful workshops and circles and healing baths. So if you just want to toe touch and just something that is good for everybody, I would highly recommend when she's singing and playing her harp at one of her sound baths. So thank you all for tuning in and being with Jillian and I and Jesse here today. And if you are looking for me, you can find me on livingmysoulspurpose.com or on Instagram at Marcy Walker Coaching or at I Am Wild Sage. And if you're looking to get out in the public and help support the energy clinics that Jillian and I are trying to co-create into our Reno Sparks community, there is a mix and mingle that is going to be, it's set for March 24th at Evolve Chiropractic Boutique. Until then, take care.